Welcome to Gadgettes, a video podcast from Gizmodo where we womansplain the latest technology. I'm your host, consumer tech reporter Florence Zion, covering Android and the smart home, and I'm joined here by our consumer tech deputy editor, Michelle Earhart. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Flo. How are you?
You know, we just came out of a forced patriotic weekend. I'm gonna put it that way. So, and the feelings are weird. It's like a really polarizing feeling. It's like, yay, we got some time off for the brain. We got some time off to just like hang out with friends and family and just like eat everything in the vicinity. But also, we come back to a lot of mess.
Yeah,
A lot of
what did
mess.
you do over your long weekend, Flo? I had burgers and I watched Starship Troopers for the first time. A
Really?
very patriotic movie, certainly with no subtext or satire whatsoever, right?
That's incredible. That's incredible because Starship Troopers, one of the reasons I love that movie is because it features a lot of Beverly Hills alum. And funny enough, what's her face? Oh my God, I'm forgetting her name, but we'll subtitle it here because it'll come to me after the recording. But I was also half watching Johnny Mnemonic, which I have never seen its entirety, last week, which features what's her face who was in Starship Troopers. Dina something. I forget her last name. We'll pop up a picture of her, and whoever's watching this video podcast will know exactly who we're talking about. She played Lucinda Nicholson on 90210, which was a teacher that had an affair with a 19-year-old college student. I love 90210. You just don't get storylines like that anymore. Anyway,
I was surprised to see Neil Patrick Harris in Starship Troopers.
Oh yeah, I forgot he's in that as well. Yeah, it's like
No baby Doogie Howser.
No, it's it's wild.
He plays a not at all suspicious looking man in a strict black leather hat and cape. There's
That's
no
right.
imagery there connected to that whatsoever.
Well, also, you did a much better movie choice. My initial movie was I was going to watch Charlie's Angels, the Drew Barrymore reprise.
Oh,
I ended up not
okay.
doing that.
That's another action movie I have not seen.
It's you know what? It's fun. It's fun in a cusp of the millennium sort of way.
You know what else is fun, Flo? Retail therapy, buying things, consumer technology, gadgets. So what do we have here to talk about on Gadgettes today? You see what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there. Today on Gadgettes, we're going to talk about, could you imagine, Michelle, your smartphone just teeming with ads?
I could.
More so
yes.
than it is now. More so than it is now.
Because I use the YouTube app. Yes, I can.
Oh God, yeah, that's incredible. Well, we're going to talk about a startup that may or may not be coming to the US, that may or may not be bringing a new kind of smartphone lock screen. Well, we're going to just we'll talk about the theoreticals of that. And then, I kind of co-opted the show notes this week and decided by myself, without editorial input, that we should cover Tamagotchi again.
Of course we did.
So we're going to cover the Tamagotchi that I actually just put into the archive, the Tamagotchi Pix Party. So that review did come out. So I had some things to say about it.
I did. And, I edited that review. I thought it was very fun. I don't know. It looks cute.
Well, I hope I can encourage you, Michelle, to maybe go out and buy your own. We'll see. We'll see how we do by the end of the segment.
I sound down on it now. I realize I do not intend to sound that down on it. It legitimately looks like a fun device. I mean, that's what nothing is selling itself on, right?
Well, we do also need you to get on the Digimon side of things. So I'll try and I'll see if I can convince you.
Okay.
During that segment.
Finally, join us further into the show.
Exactly. And then finally, you and I also sort of collectively agreed that there is some love for our own home media servers, which is, again, incredibly beautifully nerdy. It's how we use our media service.
I just swapped out Disney Plus for Paramount Plus, right? So that I could watch the Star Treks. And I hate having to manage that. So why not
Mhm.
set up my own Disney Plus at home?
Ooh, I love that. We'll do a little
Mhm.
bit of, fanning and a little bit of how-toing at the same time.
Ooh.
Seems like we're in for a very helpful, fun, light episode. Something to cut all the darkness that's been
You can tell.
seeping
I don't know
through.
if you can tell, but we're recording a little bit later in the day right now.
Yes.
So I've got my post burrito attitude going on.
Yes, and I have the child is sleeping in the other room. I need to talk a little more lower and slightly
Ah,
more sultry, so
I
enjoy
see.
this slice of real life that we have going on here.
All right. We'll catch you
Alright.
after the break and we'll talk about glance.
Well, you've been wondering what my background is of today because I am changing backgrounds with every topic now. This is the first preview.
I am so jealous of your green screen flow. I always just have New York City in my background. I mean, it's not a bad backdrop, but
If it makes you feel better, I trip over at least once a week. 'Cause it lays on the floor, and it's like a little pop-up thing. Perhaps maybe one day I'll show everybody the demo, but, the green screen exists to allow me to blackboard. What you see here behind me is an app called Glance. Now, this is not an app that is available in the United States as of currently, but and actually, it's not really an app at all. It really works more like an overlay on top of Android. And it's a service that has come bundled with more Indian and just overseas manufacturers. A lot of Indian and Chinese manufacturers are using or including Glance in their operating systems as a way to sort of deliver content before you get to what you're trying to get to on your smartphone. And so the reason this is coming up in our news here in the US is because there were some rumblings. Again, very slow news week, but there were some rumblings via TechCrunch that Glance is looking to expand its lock screen platform into the US. Now, the way TechCrunch reported it, they said that now Glance is a mobile ad company, and they've apparently been in talks, according to a source familiar with the matter, with US wireless carriers that it plans to launch several smartphones as soon as next month. Of course, you might be wondering, is this something that would affect me as an Android user? Because we're not really talking about iPhones here. At least I don't think we are, especially since Glance is already included on a couple of Android devices overseas, as I mentioned, including Samsung's budget line of devices. So I know this sort of got me thinking, what is that going to mean for the folks here in the US who are using these like sub $500, these really cheap, sometimes free phones that you get for signing up with a carrier or with an MVNO? I kind of I just wanted to open the floor, and Michelle, you were out yesterday when this news hit, so I kind of want to get your real-time take of how would you feel knowing that there are some of us Android users dealing with ads and content on the lock screen.
Well, I would not be surprised, to be 100% honest. Although I will say, let's try to. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt at first so
Right.
that we can then tear into this
There's
accurately.
nothing
W-
official yet.
What
It's
does
all
what does Glance
conjecture.
purport that it like gives you as a benefit? Like what is the purpose of Glance?
The purpose is to allow you to watch video, check the news headlines, uh, I suppose see what's coming up. I am thinking it's supposed to be like the Google Discover feed that exists currently on Android devices, but like on the
The
lock
feed that
screen.
like a bunch
Mhm.
of people don't like and the widgets on Windows that they keep trying to smash in your face that a bunch of people don't like. Now you can get that on your smartphone with oh my gosh, this is just the Windows like Vista and 11 start screen on your phone's lock screen, isn't it?
I
That's
I
the vibe I'm
maybe
getting.
Maybe. I It's definitely feels like a content delivery service before you actually, like, unlock your phone and go into what you're looking for.
Mhm.
feels like something that would be, if it came into the US, it feels like something that would be loaded on top of all the other stuff that's already preloaded on these phones that come really cheap, which worries me.
Yeah. You know what?
Worries
Actually, now
me.
that I think about it, if they want you like getting video and news and all these sources of info just flashing on your lock screen without specifically navigating to them, that has me concerned about how that will work with always on displays. Granted, this is coming to budget phones, but
Mhm.
I can imagine if you are driving and you don't want to be distracted, that could be a big annoyance.
That's a really good point actually about the always on display and just like the idea of your phone distracting you. And The Verge actually wrote about this, and they took it a little further on this opine, which was that this it spells trouble to us because it feels like this is another thing that we're going to have to contend with. Maybe it's not going to come from Glance, maybe it'll come from some other company, but if this becomes normalized in the US, let's say amongst budget devices, it's this idea that content doesn't just exist after I consent to to
Hmm.
removing the lock. It's that content is going to constantly be blaring at you even when you're not ready to interact with it.
It's
And
like,
that's
yeah, exactly. If you're driving, if you're, dealing with your kid, or I don't want to
Mhm.
be distracted, and I especially don't want to like pay for the privilege of having a billboard in my pocket. I always find those like ad supported Kindle or ad supported while I'm talking about it,
Mhm.
Paramount Plus plan to be a little sketch. It's like if you're going to put ads on the thing, I kind of don't want to pay for it. I especially don't want it to be a physical object that I can hold in my hand. I guess, the idea of offloading cost with ads can make these devices more accessible for certain members of the market, but at
Sure.
the same time, it isn't creating a comparable experience.
No, it's not, and it angered me too because I am already so concerned about the experience on the low-end Android side of things. Like, there are people out
Mhm.
there who take the free phone when they go to the carrier, and it's usually some really bloaty Android device that's, like, not up to spec. It's not, on the latest software or security patches, and it's like you're walking with this it's like walking with an open wound,
Right.
frankly. It's sort of the way I feel about it.
Yeah, and these
And
devices
Mhm.
already have like a life limit on them when you get them.
Right.
Um, Adding to, arguably bloat on top of that just, makes the device more prone to becoming sluggish in the future.
Yeah, and, oh goodness, it's a little I wanted to say that the only reason I'm okay with the ads on, like, the streaming service is because I know that I'm paying the least amount to have access to, like, some TV show or some movie that I wanna, like, be a part of. I wanna be able to talk to friends about, or I wanna catch up on that plot line. But a phone is a daily device. It's something that people rely on, and for some households, it may be the only way that they get on the internet. So
Hmm.
imagine, like, the only way that you can get on the internet is by being blasted with content before you can go and, like, tread your own journey.
That's
It
a
just
good point. I have like a top limit on the amount of, even if it's content I want to see, like I say content with almost a sneering voice now, like content. I have
Mhm.
a top limit on the amount of content I can consume when I go online, and that's going to eat into my own personal budget. If I just like have to see ads before I even, get my butt in the door.
Oh my goodness. Well, again, nothing has been officially announced from Glance's side about its foray into the US or how it's going to exist here. And it's very well that, like, who knows what deal they would strike with the carriers, how a carrier, I can imagine Verizon leveraging this and being like, let's push through some content. Because remember, Verizon had Go 90,
Mm-hmm.
which was its version of Quibi, which did not work out very well. So I wouldn't put it
It's
past
just
them.
like these ads too are always like, I don't think Apple would allow this for a lot of reasons, but also because it's very counter to the type of like hip sort of aesthetic Apple is going for. If you ever use the YouTube app and you see the ads they play before every video, so many of them are like trashy, are for super malware looking applications or for applications that don't
Yeah.
exist. To see that on the lot, but that's at least quarantined to its own little like YouTube side zone.
Yes.
But we all know
Right.
that the Google Play Store maybe could use some more intense moderation. To then see that on the phone's lock screen before I even access my Android makes it harder for me to ignore that I am using a device that is maybe more vulnerable to the seedier parts of the internet than other options. That makes sense. Which
Yeah.
it hits against the whole like smart fantasy that these phones are trying to sell.
It's funny you talk about smart fantasy. I mean, you were just talking about Starship Troopers, which makes me think about the sci-fi I've watched and how some of the more horrific sci-fi of the future just sort of has depicted our future as being lambasted with ads.
Right. I don't want to, I saw a comment on our story about this and I didn't want to linger on it too long because I think it's a little apples to oranges. It's still a phone you buy, and for a lot of
Mhm,
people you still need to use a phone, especially if it's your only real accessible computing device. But someone
mhm.
did compare this to the Futurama scene where Fry, the main character from the 20th century, actually who gets transported 1,000 years in the future, ends up getting ads beamed into his brain during his
Oh,
dreams.
yeah,
And it's
that's
like,
right, I remember
what
this
is
scene.
this? Why is this happening? And everyone in the future just treats it as completely normal thing. Like, yeah, you dream, you get ads. And it's just like things like this, whether it comes through glance or something else, it's just going to normalize that type of like billboardification of our daily
Yep,
lives.
the billboardification of the smartphone. Well, that feels like a good little pause for us there to stop and get ourselves prepped for our next little segment, which will be a little lighter than what we were currently
Hmm.
talking about. So we will be right back. Well, I promised you that we would be going through my review of Tamagotchi Pix Party, which is right here behind me. Ta-da. Look, they're having a party. Look, they're having a party right there.
That's so cute. I love their designs. I love their full color. I didn't even realize Tamagotchi was still like a bespoke device thing until I met you, Flo. And you're getting me more and more
You're not the first
interested in
person.
these the more these come out because like look, this is such a cute little like nifty looking unitasker of a device. If you've ever watched Alton Brown's cooking stuff, he always derides things in the kitchen that are called unitaskers, which are like, things that are designed only to do one thing. Like this is an egg separator or whatever. It's like, or you could just use the shells, or like this is a watermelon slicer. It's just like, or you could just use your knife that you use for all these other things. But when it comes to technology, I feel like it's the other way around, where a lot of the like sort of chintzy stuff is sold as multitaskers, and I want to see more unitaskers in my life.
Well, this little unitasker right now has been sunsetted. So I have it right here in my hand. It is off because I took the batteries out yesterday. And the reason is because I was running it for 6 weeks, which is one of the longest times that I've run a Tamagotchi uh, subsequently. And there are a lot of people in the Tamagotchi community who do run these things for like very, very long time to see how many generations of Tamagotchi that they can get, which is kind of the point of the game, is to collect all the items, get every character that you can, meet every character you can. But I get sort of bored after after a while with the repetitive caretaking process, which is why I went to Japan on the internet and bought this another Tamagotchi Smart. I got the Sanrio version with this little Sanrio card that goes in, and so I have little Sanrio items on
Oh.
here.
Flo,
Um,
who's your and not to distract too much, who's your favorite Sanrio character?
okay, so I'm always fine with anything Hello Kitty,
Mhm.
but my favorite character, and I always have a soft spot for Pachaco.
Okay.
It's my dog. It's
Who's
my dog.
Pachaco again? It's a dog?
He's a little dog with like the long little black ears, and he's always playing soccer. I
Okay.
collected him when I was young, so that's why I have a special place with him. But obviously, like
I don't
Kuropi,
think my
Boxmaru, there's so
Sanrio
many.
knowledge is as, like, deep as yours, but I'm on the Agretzko train, so I love anything Agretzko, but also oh, I think you've gotten Agretzko. Yes! So people who aren't aware, Agretzko is the red panda office worker, who channels her, like, annoyances with office life via doing karaoke of intense heavy metal. It's great. She has a whole anime on Netflix, also great. But I also love
Mhm.
Gudetama, which I think is the name for it, which is the very like depressed,
No
sad.
Gujitama over here. Sorry. I was trying to
And
look for
he
something.
just or they, I don't know Gudetama's gender. They just kind of like express a lot about what I think it is like to live in the late 2010s and early 2020s.
Yeah, that's really true, and okay. We will have to do a now I regret not doing our Let's Fan about Sanrio, but I didn't think that I was gonna bring it up, and it's always on my mind, though, because 'cause I'm
Well, it's
literally
kind of
covered.
it's related to
I mean,
Tamagotchi, right? Which is why you have a Tamagotchi. Say, oh, Tamagotchi Sanrio. They have a lot of similar appeal flow. So,
they do.
what does the Tamagotchi Pix Party do? Why you said that you were going to get me into Tamagotchi? Your review said it's like a good entry point. What do I get with the Pix Party?
What do you get with the Pix Party? I will tell you that you get much more than with the first generation Pix. So, the Tamagotchi Pix is a line that came out last summer, and they launched this actually everywhere in the world except Japan. So, Bandai, I think, is really trying to test the different markets and see where it can engage the fans because it's really wild how far the Tamagotchi fandom spans. I For this Tamagotchi release in particular, the Pix and the Pix Party, I've interfaced with a lot of Spanish-speaking Tamagotchi fans, and thank God for the built-in translation on the browsers because I can actually interface with these folks. But the reason that we've been interacting is because there is a camera on the back of this, and this is a new mechanism that's been coming to virtual pets in Japan. I actually have a couple of other Bandai non Tamagotchi toys that use cameras for scanning things like QR codes and colors. And so this one in particular does both. It will scan a QR code to get items so you can have play dates with other people, so you can do missions on Tamagotchi.com. And so the idea is to get a little more interactivity. And I will say, however, that the interactivity only goes so far because it's not like you can download new items. You can't get anything beyond what's already been pre-programmed inside of this. But the discovery is part of playing the game. I like the Tamagotchi Pix Party, however, a lot more because it has that party element to it. This right here. You see how happy they are. And so what you can do is as you like as you run into these characters in the park, you can favorite them, and then later on you can invite them to your house. And when you have a little party, it lets you play a couple of extra games. So there's a DJ game that you can play that's like Dance Dance Revolution on the Tamagotchi.
Oh,
There is a bingo game, which is you sometimes you don't win, which is kind of nice because it's a different result every time. There's also a gift exchange game, and that kind of helps you get new additional items, and that has helped add extra content to this particular Tamagotchi. The thing about these color Tamagotchi though is that they cost $60. So it's about
excuse me, Flo.
Yes. So it's about
For
the cost of a
$60,
Nintendo
I
Switch
can get a
game.
brand new AAA video game for my
Yeah.
PlayStation 5 home entertainment. I'm trying to say it in as many words as possible.
No, but you're right. You're totally right. And so you have to look at this as like a self-contained console, like a
Mhm.
little mini virtual console of some sort. And if you do end up getting to it, Michelle, I can tell you I can show you where the repositories are of QR codes and
The
some of the ways.
repositories to that's the repositories to inject into my Tamagotchi. I know what you mean by it's a collection of QR. It's just very funny
It's the
word
fan
to think of it
community.
with like a living digital pet.
I know. I know. It's,
It sounds
you
like
know,
suppository is the joke I am making.
listen, I have to make sure not to say the other word every time because of my ESL. So thank God I said the right word. But two AAA batteries is what this takes, which can be the first gen was very frustrating with that because they would eat through the batteries in about 5 to 7 days, depending on how often you're using the camera. And if you're like me and going to the online repository where all the QR codes are, then you're using the camera a lot. This lasted, though, about 2 weeks each time. I had to swap out the batteries, which I really appreciated, but it still means like you have to buy a box of AAA batteries.
I would expect a $60 device to be rechargeable. I don't know.
This Tamagotchi is rechargeable. I did, by the way, review this Tamagotchi for Gizmodo, not this exact model, but the original release when it came out. I spent a whopping $120 for that one after importing it
Lawrence
because of
Ion,
shipping from Japan is very expensive.
you
It's very
have a
expensive to fly on that plane.
daughter. Are you
I
going
know.
to give these to her when she's old enough to play with them?
I might ask for them to bury me with them.
Okay. Bury me with my Tamagotchi.
Somebody I was okay, I was on a podcast this morning. I was on Clockwise. If anybody wants to go check out the episode this week, and the question was, "What is one of your most prized possessions?" And I was going to say Tamagotchi. I said something else, but I was thinking about the box of things I would grab with me if, God forbid, there's ever a fire that I have to evacuate from. Sorry for the realness, but
Hmm.
it's what
No
goes to my
worries.
brain.
I had that thought a lot growing up.
So, here, I'll show you. This is my box.
You have a go box full of Tamagotchis so
Yeah,
that you can
as you
just
could
like pick it up and leave.
Mhm, mhm.
Oh, I have a box like that, but it's like for my social security card and my passport
I have those too. Those are
and
next to my
various
bedside.
legal documents. I'm teasing. I love that you're living your best life. I have spent too much money on not even Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but virtual Yu-Gi-Oh cards within the like Yu-Gi-Oh mobile app. I totally understand where you're
Michelle, are
coming
those
from, and I
Yu-Gi-Oh
have no room to.
NFTs?
They're not Yu-Gi-Oh NFTs. There's a Yu-Gi-Oh gotcha game that lets you play Yu-Gi-Oh on your phone with other people, and you can open virtual booster packs that give you cards that you can use in the game. So they have my virtual Yu-Gi-Oh cards that only work in this one Yu-Gi-Oh app. I will say still have more uh usability. There's a word for that I'm blanking on right now. Utility, more utility than an NFT, I will say. And so does your
Fair.
Tamagotchi, and it's well worth $120 if it makes you happy.
Side note, I have an incredible library of Pokemon cards in the virtual Pokemon online card game.
Did you see that they're printing more of those? I'm sorry to
Yes,
keep getting off
yes.
topic, but there was a story that came out recently that I don't have the number. I think it's either 7 million or 7 billion. Billion sounds like way too much, but they are printing a bunch of million, a bunch of million Pokemon cards in order to get over
A bunch of million.
the massive rarity thing that's happening right now. Where if you're not aware, Pokemon cards have become a bit of a speculative NFT-like market space over the past few years themselves.
Trading cards, the original NFTs. Tamagotchi, the whole point of them is to collect them. That was the idea when they first came out in the 90s, was for you to get like
Mhm.
different shells. and the gameplay is the same across the board. Just there's variation with each model. And so this is one of the things to consider. And, if you have more questions and you want to wonder, how the hell do I enjoy Tamagotchi as an adult? Feel free to use our inbox, Gadgettes at gizmodo.com.
Nice
I'd
plug.
love to help you and, help you get into the cuter side of the matrix.
That's a perfect note to end it on,
Mhm.
Flo. I think I might actually throw on a disguise and send a question to that inbox
You
as
should.
well.
Maybe you should ask
Um,
about Digimon if you need
yeah.
help getting into Digimon.
Yeah, I've never explored the virtual pet side of Digimon. I know who Yggdrasil, another world tree in an anime is. I know, but I know who King Drazel is. I know who Alphamon and Omegamon are, but I don't. I've never owned an actual virtual pet, which is the whole thing that spawned Digimon.
God bless anime. Well, by the way, there is a Tamagotchi anime, just as a side note.
Aw,
All right, everyone. Let's take a quick little break, and when we get back, Michelle and I are going to get super nerdy about our home servers.
there might be some more anime coming up soon.
Well, Michelle and I were talking about what we would fan over today, and it turns out that we both have some very well curated Plex servers at home. Well, in our minds, well curated for us specifically. I what I was mentioning to Michelle earlier today is that because we're trying to figure out, okay, what have we been watching on TV? Which is when I confessed that I've been watching a VHS rip of Real World Hawaii that I found
Oh
on YouTube.
my gosh. No, that's wonderful. I love that for you.
Thank you. Well, Paramount Plus doesn't have all of the seasons. And before Paramount Plus existed, back when it was like CBS All Access, and it didn't have real world episodes, it didn't have MTV shows that I grew up loving. I had to scrape YouTube for the real world episodes. And so I started archiving them around 2017 is when I started my search. And I have about 7 seasons right now on my server. I'm not going to tell you which ones they are because I don't want to give away my sources
Do you
in this
watch
particular
them
instance.
all in a row as a serialized experience, or do you just throw on a random real world episode when you feel like one?
Great question. Great question. First, what I do, so right now I'm just like rewatching them as per to okay, what do I remember from when I was sneak watching Real World? Because I was way too young to be watching this show when it was on. Just just to be just to be precise. So first I will do the watch through, and then what I do have is I have an afternoon playlist. And this is when I
Oh,
shuffle in, I make my own afternoon after school TV time.
okay.
I did this more when I was freelancing, Michelle. I'm not, watching TV on
No,
the
I
clock,
got you. I was just
but
thinking, what is the experience of I've never watched a ton. I'm not immune to reality television. I watched Survivor growing up. I love Chopped. I still love Chopped, but I've never been a huge person to go and watch reality TV after the fact as something that I keep and maintain as a collection.
well, I would never do this with Real Housewives
Hmm.
because there's nothing, maybe the first season of the very original one just to have it on archive, but there's nothing. The Real World in particular really spoke to me as an adolescent because I got to see college kids out in the world that I was not a part of, and that was
Mm.
super fascinating to me as a preteen and then a teenager. But when I mentioned the afternoon playlist, it's not just reality TV. It's also the original Deke dub of Sailor Moon.
Yeah,
It's also
Serena.
yeah, it's also just I forgot what I have on that playlist actually
The
because
one
I
where they're
actually have
cousins, they're just very good cousins.
yeah.
Just gals being pals.
Did Cartoon Network do that? Because it
I
was
think that was the
Toonami that
Deep
took
Dub,
on.
right? That made Uranus and Neptune cousins, right?
I d
So I
see, we
bring this up
gotta
because
go into the wiki.
in the original Japanese, no, but in the original
Do
version
that
of
too.
Sailor Moon, Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune
Mhm.
are dating. They're girls and they're dating. And I'm saying that because there's oh right no Sailor Moon has a famous line where she's like they're girls and they're dating too. And it's I don't know, and she's like
God bless.
amazed by it, but in a positive, like supportive, like 90s. I'm such an ally, like whatever. I love Usagi. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, yes, regardless, it's on the home server, and it is in the rotation along with some other afternoon hits,
I'm
and,
getting on so many tangents today. I'm sorry,
it's
but
okay.
let's talk about this. You set up an afternoon playlist, so let's explain for the listeners at home who might not know what Plex is and how it works and why we're discussing it today.
So Plex is a basically an I wanna say it's open source. You can download it at home and install it on your PC or your home media server if you have one. Plex does try and encourage folks to, like, get a NAS drive for this sort of thing because you wanna have, hard drives that can be, accessed time and time again and that, have the switch to go dormant. Currently, our home media server lives on my husband's PC. My husband's PC is not as in use as much as it used to be back in the day because he switched to MacBooks. So now it kind of lives as this home media server that I have access to. Anytime I archive any video or if I, let's say, get in some new DVD rips, I actually have a box of DVDs underneath my couch right now that I've been slowly ripping like I'll buy DVDs on sale from the used bookstore
Mm-hmm.
and rip them to the server. I'll drag and drop them into the home media server on the home network. And then I go over to my casting devices and I just go to the Plex app and I log in and it's right there is my perfect
You
little afternoon
basically made
playlist.
your own little bespoke Netflix kind of
I made my
thing.
own
So
TV channel.
yep, I use Plex as well. I don't think I have quite as like robust of a Plex server as you do, but I love Plex because it allows me to easily cast to a bunch of devices that otherwise wouldn't be able to host this kind
Mhm.
of content. Uh, Fan subs obtained through methods of shows that are only available in Japan, specifically Kamen Rider and Super Sentai and all
Oh,
sorts of
yeah.
like
Yeah.
tokusatsu shows. So if you grew up watching Power Rangers like
Yeah.
I did, I still have a soft spot in my heart for Power Rangers, but it's part of a wider genre of shows in Japan that are made for all sorts of ages, honestly. And probably the big one is Kamen Rider, and then which is sister series to Super Sentai, which is what Power Rangers is based off of, and it's got a huge fan base in Latin America, a growing fan base in the US, and then obviously a massive fan base in its home country of Japan. But regardless, it's very hard to get that content officially outside of Japan, which has made Plex a very convenient way to just pull it up on my TV, like when I'm eating lunch or whatever.
By the way, Kamen Rider also has a Tamagotchi. It's a
Of
nano
course it
Tamagotchi.
does.
It's a nano Tamagotchi that you can get. I think and I believe it's you have to order it from Japan to get it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't buy it here in the US directly. So, just to speak to the fandom. Um, I wish that home media servers were a little more like Plex is the easiest one to use by far, but you have to still know what you are doing with computers and with home
Mm-hmm.
networking. It's not unbundle it on your computer and it'll just like do everything for you, which is why I had my husband really help and set it up because I don't have the patience for that sort of thing. I could do it if
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to, but I don't like to
My
have patience.
boyfriend also set up. My boyfriend also
I
set
know,
up
right? It's like
Plex for
my
me because
husband
I'm just
set it up
a
for me.
girl who doesn't
I'm
know.
just a
No, I'm
girl.
kidding. But he's just the one who downloaded the fan subs to his computer. So he happened to be the one who ran Plex. But now I agree with you because it's that annoying thing where like I have to make sure his computer is on and like
Oh
he's
god,
not
yes.
using it in order to run like the Plex server properly. Which reminds me of like during the days of dial-up where I had to check and be like, "Mom, are you on the phone? I wanna go on the internet."
That's
Mhm.
right. Yes, and I think you have to pay the $5 too if you want, like, certain access to the Plex library. I will say that Plex has increased its offerings, and actually, I'm gonna link it in the show notes because a couple months ago, I wrote about how they added, I believe they added some live TV
Mhm.
to the app, and they let you pull in podcasts, so it's like a really nice centralized home media server, but
Yeah.
it's not, like, 100% consumer friendly,
Right, but the point is, like,
so
it's if you are not pleased by any of the streaming services out there, which I totally get, they're becoming more and more fragmented and specific, but you like the user experience of streaming
Mhm.
rather than like searching through your, Windows Explorer and just clicking on a video file. I think Plex is a good option for you, and it can really expand what you're able to watch beyond, what is available, even like in your country for the most part. It brings you
Mhm.
back to those old days. I think of browsing the Suncoast, anime aisle or whatever. You don't have to use it for anime, but that's what I use it for, anime and live action anime, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah, because 'cause I'm not interested in archiving anything that's super new right now.
Mhm.
Maybe I will be, but everything right now is what can I get my hands on that's old. By the way, anybody looking for old clips of things, a really good place to look for these things is the Internet Archive.
Mhm.
Yes, that's where I got the original, Toonami dubs of Sailor Moon, Super
Right.
S.
Where
So
did you
just
find
something
those actually where you could download them? Like, through the Internet Archive? Did you I don't know, I'm curious.
I just went in and I used the main search bar and then you kinda go and you filter it by year, and so
Okay.
you look around the years that it was originally recorded.
Mhm.
So I think that was late '90s, early 2000s is when they brought it to Toonami, and, I just happened to stumble upon it, and I was like, "Oh my god, I need to, like,
I
download this
didn't
right
know
now."
those were ever, like, officially uploaded in a way that you could scrape. That's super cool that
I don't
Toonami
think
was
these are
running in that way back then.
it's definitely a VHS rip.
Okay.
So it includes, like, the original advertising, and the other thing that is a bummer about Plex, this is a big caveat, is if you rely on subtitles, you gotta go find your own SRTs, which
Mhm,
can be
mhm.
hard to find something if you're doing a VHS rip. So
Yeah, we had to do that as well. Because like I said, Plex is super good for foreign import stuff.
mhm,
But that is one of the limitations of it.
yep. Well, at least there is a solution for something. Um, and as a
And
solution
before they start adding somehow ads to your own personal video files that are stored on your computer.
I know. I do get a little I do get a little worried about the ad-filled future, but for now, we must say our goodbyes as we worry about this because our show is coming to a close here at the end of the Gadgettes video podcast. This is the fun
This is a
I'm not
very maudlin, and we'll be back
I know.
next week.
I'm gonna leave. I'm leaving this in. Thank you, editors. That is gonna do it for us this week. So thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Michelle, where can people find you if they want to find more about you on the internet?
Sure. So people can find me on Twitter at Shell Earhart. That username will be on the screen right now because there's no way you know how to spell it without looking at it.
It's people ask me how to spell my last name too,
Hmm.
even though it's only 3 letters. I
Yeah,
am
blame Germany. Blame Germany.
uh I will. My daughter has a German last name. So that's a fun one.
Fun.
As
Lots of consonants.
Exactly. As for me, you can find me on Twitter and everywhere else on social media at Oh That Flow. By the way, if you're curious about Tamagotchi stuff, I post about it to Instagram and TikTok. That's where you'll find some of those things. As for Gadgettes, the show, we publish every Thursday to Gizmodo's official YouTube page. You can also find clips and show notes plus past show notes on gizmodo.com. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or you just want to say hi, you can send us an email, gadgettes@gizmodo.com. And Michelle is waving right now because it is time for us to say goodbye.
I'm doing some business in the background. I got to keep
week.
them entertained.
Exactly. Until next week, we want to thank everybody for joining us and my Tamagotchi.
Thank you, Flo's Tamagotchi.
Thank you, Tamagotchi, for throwing us this party. And we'll be back next week with more shenanigans and news.
I'm gonna go home and see my my plush pet.
Yes.
All right. See you, everyone. Bye.